Who knew that the non-EX Gengar and the Ghost-type Oricorio make the strongest Ghost-type deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket? Combine both of these Pokemon with the Fairy-type Tapu Lele. This is a card we're seeing a lot right now in the meta because it's really strong right now, and you get this deck. Over the weekend, there was a 3,000-person tournament, and this was one of the best-performing decks in the tournament, with one of the overall best Day 1 records and coming in pretty close to top 8 in Day 2. Could this crazy-looking Ghost-type focused deck be the new best deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket? I had to find out for myself, so I took it into ranked, and I want to talk you through a couple matches while giving you my overall thoughts on the deck, both the pros and the cons. And we'll start off with this match, which I think does a great job showcasing the deck. Starting off here, we've got a Tapu Lele up front. We had a choice between a Ghastly or a Tapu Lele for our first starter opener. Since we didn't have the Gengar yet, I decided let's just go with the Tapu Lele. I also saw that they were playing Lightning Energy, so probably they're going to be starting with an Oricorio. And right now, as I'm recording this, you're going to see a lot of this deck here. This is like the new meta here is the Oricorio Gengar is just kind of everywhere. Now, we did get a little lucky drawing directly into the Gengar, so now we have our Gengar set up. We've got our Tapu Lele up front. This is going to be a very common opener, I would say, with this deck. I think the optimal opener with this deck is pretty much Tapu Lele up front and then building up a Gengar on the bench, possibly leading off with the Gengar, but I think ideally Tapu Lele, plus having the Oricorio also on the bench ready to go as well. And the Tapu Lele is doing exactly what you want it to do. It's putting our opponent in this hard position where they're having to decide, do we build up the Oricorio and attack the Tapu Lele to kill it down, or do we start building up the Giratina? If they start building up the Giratina, it puts them in a terrible position. So instead, they're put in this tough position where they're not getting the ability to build up that Giratina on the bench, and instead they have to just keep attacking with that Oricorio. Now, here's where Gengar is pretty obviously going to shine. 70 damage is a pretty nice number to be hitting when there's so many Oricorios running around all over the place. We have one of the more interesting choices in this deck in our hand, the Giovanni. We've actually done pretty well of kind of drawing all of our different one-of utility cards. We've got the Guzman in case we needed it as well, so no matter what, that Gengar was taking out that Oricorio. Because of the way that this match played out, because that Tapu Lele put such good early pressure on, our opponent is in a pretty precarious position. Obviously, they're going to need to get the Greninja. They were able to hit it, so now we've kind of got a match on our hands here. And now, once again, that opponent's put in a difficult position again. Do they build up the front and start attacking to kill our Gengar, or do they build up the Giratina? They opt to go ahead and try to kill the Gengar. It makes sense, I think, here. The opponent, I think, at this point is just going all in, hoping we can't really do anything else because we have nothing else on our board. They could get an easy win. But because of that Lily, and that Lily is just so strong in so many of these games that I played with this deck. Lily, obviously, pretty much everybody should know Lily's a good card at this point. Because of that Lily, we're able to heal back up, only taking 20 damage, do the 70 on the Greninja, and that 70 damage, it's just, the main question with this deck is going to be, who's better, Gengar or I would say Togekiss? Which one of these two are you going to choose? In this deck, you're kind of banking on these lucky coin flip scenarios where you kind of need to hit a lucky coin flip every now and then, or maybe even 2 lucky coin flips, whereas, if you go with the Togekiss route, which I just covered recently, okay, quick shout out, check out my past video on Togekiss if you want to see that, and please consider subscribing if you like these higher ranked tournament coverage type videos in this format. So yeah, only being able to deal that 70 damage, we're kind of relying on that coin flip of the sleep coin flip to probably win a lot of these matches. I actually used to play Wigglytuff EX all the time. I would say Wigglytuff EX was probably like one of my most played cards in Genetic Apex, and it was absolutely amazing. And it was 80 damage for 3 energy, get the guaranteed sleep. So the guaranteed sleep, I mean, it is super strong. There's just no doubt about it. But 70 damage, guaranteed sleep, you have to get the evolution. I'm pretty unsure about this deck. It's been playing really well for me. It's got the Tapu Lele, but again, the Psychic Energy, the Togekiss gets the exact same options. I'm going to say this. One thing I can say, I think for sure about these decks, one of them is better. You're either going to run the Gengar or you're going to run the Togekiss. I don't think they're going to be, even. One of them is better, ultimately. Now, here I went with a little bit of a different play. I switched in the Tapu Lele to ping down the Froakie in the back because I saw I had 2 energies, and my opponent would have to draw double rare candy in order for us to not just get pretty much an immediate win, and they didn't have the double rare candy. Tapu Lele was able to win it for us. But what about the actual namesake of this deck, the Gengar, the big ghost boy? Well, I still think, like I said, that the main key question for this particular deck is going to be which is going to be better ultimately, playing the early Gengar or playing the early Togekiss with Cynthia support. Both of these decks have been kind of the secret sleeper decks that keep doing really well in huge tournaments, and I've now covered them both, and they occupy kind of the same slot, essentially. And since they both pair with pretty much all the exact same cards, I really do think this is the key question. Which one of these two, if you're interested in this style of deck, which one of these is ultimately better? Let's look at a match that showcases just leading off with the Gengar. All right, so going into this second match, we are up against Psychic Energy is what we see right off the bat. So that means probably something playing Giratina. Now, we don't have any choices to start the match out. All we've got is a Ghastly to start. We got the 2 Gengar in our hand, hoping to draw into a rare candy, of course. I'll go ahead and shout this out. Everybody's going to learn my opinion on this, but any deck relying heavily on rare candy, I've played them, and you're always going to run into some consistency issues. Now, we managed to get a little bit lucky here, drew straight into the rare candy. We've got an Oricorio going on the bench, of course, so pretty good setup. It's not maybe a Tapu Lele first with the Gengar is a little bit better setup, possibly, but it's about as good as you're going to get also because we're getting the quick, super quick early Gengar as fast as you can get attacking with 2 energy, and then we've got that nice Oricorio on the bench who wants to be sitting waiting in the bench. Our opponent is building up the Giratina on the bench. Would have been nice to have that Tapu Lele, but that's fine. So here we go. We're getting the power of the Gengar. And remember, like I said, I feel like the main rival of this deck is going to be whether you're going to play this or whether you're going to play Togekiss. Togekiss here would also be absolutely fantastic. They both are going to take 1 turn to get set up. This sleep here is not really going to matter so much. At best, it's going to save us a couple damage. They'd also have to attack, so it's not looking like it's going to really matter much. Let's quickly shout out this Cape, which ends up getting Guzma. It's not going to matter in this match, but Cape, you know, I felt the same way when I was playing the Togekiss. I think they both have that same 140 HP, right? Yep, they do. They're both 140 HP. I just rewound my own video that I'm editing here. So they're both sitting on that 140 HP. Going from the 140 to 160, I said the same thing in the Togekiss video. It feels pretty good, maybe even necessary, because what are we facing down? We're facing about a bunch of Giratinas with a Darkrai in the back, hitting for the 130 plus the 20. We're playing now against a bunch of Giratina plus the 20 ping from the Frog on the bench, once again hitting us for 150. So that 140 doesn't really feel like the perfect breakpoint. And so here we see really a perfect example of kind of what we would be getting in these two worlds, the Gengar world versus the Togekiss world. Here in the Gengar world, we are going to get this luck-based chance on hitting them for 70 and then following up with another 70. In the Togekiss world, on the other hand, we could have potentially just one-shot that Giratina. We would have done the same thing those first couple turns, but then we'd be coming in for a buffed up huge 100 plus attack. With the Cynthia, it's like a guaranteed one-shot against pretty much everything out there, including Giratina, typically. So yeah, that's kind of like the primary takeaway I would say of this video is which one of these is better. Now, I don't know if this was just a misclick by our opponent, but they ended up pinging our bench instead of the Gengar. They should have killed the Gengar. We get to come in with the Tapu Lele and the Giovanni, giving us the 90 HP, and we're pretty much set. We win that game. All right, let's wrap up this video with 1 or 2 more matches. This match here does a great job, I think, of demonstrating, once again, a lot of the strengths of the deck and maybe some of the weaknesses. And then I'll end with more focusing on some of the weaknesses. So here we are. All right, we are put in this position where we have no choices other than we have to lead with a Ghastly up front. I chose to put a Ghastly back on back. By the way, is this all we're going to see in the meta from now on? Is these Giratina, Greninja, Tapu Lele decks? They've suddenly just totally taken over. Is it been the same for you? This is, I mean, it's a couple of days before this video comes out. I'm sure I usually pre-record these a little bit, but anyway, so we lead off with the Ghastlies. We do have a pretty good setup. Okay, so we've got pretty much all of our pieces together. We've got the Ghastly. We're actually ready. It's basically a perfect draw. We have all the pieces, and we're ready with the rare candy Gengar. We get Mars'd immediately right off the bat, and then boom, suddenly our Gengar is gone. Everybody knows this. This is just a weakness of any deck that's focusing on stage 2 Pokemon. You're going to be getting Mars, you're going to be getting red carded and things like that. It's going to mess up your game plan. I went ahead and pitched the Pokeball. Maybe that might have been a mistake or might not have been a mistake. It's debatable. But I went ahead and got rid of the Pokeball. I ended up switching out to go for the Tapu Lele. I love pressuring these early Giratinas. I keep playing these Tapu Lele decks now. I love the card. And the main reason is because of this, because getting this ability to just destroy destroy early Giratinas, they have pretty much nothing they can do. The Giratina is going to get destroyed. We're going to get 2 points. And then from that point on, it's very easy to finish the matchup by getting that one final point. So once again, we are seeing this crazy strength of cards like Tapu Lele, and the Oricorio on the bench is totally fine too. 80 damage for 1 energy. That's going to be a strong card, I have a feeling, for probably a long time, especially now with everybody running Tapu Lele. It seems like the cat's out of the bag with Tapu Lele as to how good it is, especially in the current Giratina heavy meta. So our opponent, because of how we switched our game plan, they switched their game plan to doing a little bit of damage with this Tapu Lele. They've got their Greninja, but the thing is, we're not really allowing them to do anything with the Tapu Lele, but because so many of these decks are running Giratina, we got 2 huge hits on the Giratina, setting us up for just letting us just come right in with the Oricorio to get that just super easy 2 points right off the bat. And then we're still searching, of course, for the Gengar, which we may or may not hit. And so, yeah, I felt like this match, it's simultaneously showing you just the strength of just Tapu Lele or Oricorio. It's kind of all you need. Those cards are just so strong. And then coupled with some consistency issues, which you're just always going to run into with decks like these. I think I've said this before on this channel on a past video, if anybody saw it, you know, like 1 Iono and 1 Pokemon Communication felt pretty good to me in the Charizard EX Incineroar EX deck. Here we have no middle evolution and just 1 Iono to try to help us find all the pieces to put the Gengar together. You do have a lot more time because you can use the Tapu Lele and the Oricorio to do a lot of damage. Now here we did manage to finally draw into the Gengar. We get our Gengar, 2 energy it up, it's ready to come straight in, and it's just going to kill the Tapu Lele. That's going to give us the win, and this game is going to be over. Very strong showing from the deck. I've been doing pretty well with the deck, but I think I'm sitting around like 50% win rate, nothing too crazy. And whether or not you think the deck is the strongest around or not, stronger than Togekiss or not, you can have fun with this deck, you can play this deck and do okay with it. I wanted to end this video with a Rampardos matchup. Now this deck is probably more tuned for tournaments. It did really well in a tournament, and you know, you can tune decks kind of differently for tournament versus ranked play. You're not really seeing Rampardos all over the tournaments. You are seeing Rampardos all over ranked, though, at least if you're like me and you see it constantly all the time. Here we're going against one that's actually playing Kabutops also, which is one of the first times I've ever seen this, but they ultimately end up having just a fairly standard Rampardos line. Let me go ahead and say it. This matchup feels pretty bad, I would say. The Rampardos does really well against pretty much every Pokemon in the deck. Tapu Lele doesn't really have any play against the Rampardos. Big whoop, it's going to deal 20 damage to it, and then it's going to get 1 shot. Same thing with the Oricorio. Even if you're able to get the 80 damage with the Oricorio, Rampardos is just going to come in 1-shot you, and then they can just lily back out. Here we've got the Gassy out. We actually have a good start here, okay? Once again, we have like the fastest possible 2 energy attack as soon as you rare candy Gengar, killing the Chatot immediately, and then in comes the big bad Rampardos that they were able to find all the pieces for. Not totally surprising since they're playing the Chatot version of the deck, which is, yeah, you see it every once in a while sometimes. And then look at that. They randomly have a Giovanni hitting us for the exact 140 damage. Now, I don't know. That was a little crazy, maybe just a little unlucky there. But because these Rampardos decks are playing Lily a lot of the time, you know, this is just going to be such a tough match. It feels almost unwinnable to me. The only thing that we have going for us here is that we could potentially get those lucky sleeps, but if you don't hit those sleeps, then I think you're pretty much going to be toast against this match. Here, I actually felt like I saw a glimmer of hope. We're coming in with the Tapu Lele. Woo-wee, we're dealing 20 damage. They're lilying back up, but once they take that 50 back down, we actually have the Giovanni in our hand. We're going to come in with the Oricorio, and we're able to deal 80 damage after it's going to take 50 more. So we're going to have to rely on this Oricorio hit plus the Giovanni, dealing the perfect amount of damage, and then just kind of see what happens and basically hope that we draw into a Gengar rare candy, which there's the Gengar, so now we're just looking for the rare candy. Let me also shout out one more time to Giovanni. With a deck like this, I feel like whoever, you know, tuned this deck and did so well in the tournament, it's going to be pretty much impossible, I think, for anybody on YouTube playing so many different kinds of decks, trying all these different things out. We can't really comment probably with a lot of confidence, okay, why is that Giovanni in there? How important, essential is it? It's going to be tough. You're going to have to grind the decks a fair amount to be able to make calls like specifically the one Giovanni, the one Guzma, things like that. I personally love Sabrina in these kind of decks, especially with the Tapu Lele. I love Sabrina, love it with Tapu Lele, but it's not in here. I'd love to fit that in there somehow. And now to wrap out this match, I basically had a choice whether I wanted to play around Cyrus or them hitting the third evolution. Since they hadn't hit the third evolution, I decided to play around that, but they did hit it and I lost. If I had switched the Ghastly, it could have tanked the 50 damage hit, then maybe I get lucky and evolve it into the Gengar. Could have potentially played that line and tried to get lucky on the sleeps, but that's how that match played out. All right, and everyone, as always, we're going to end. I'm going to chat a little bit about the list, and then we'll end the video. By the way, let me know what you think about this format of how I cover these decks. Let me know if you think there's any improvements I can make. If you like high-ranked play, tournament coverage, tournament matches that I'm going to upload pretty often, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would help me a lot. Now let's discuss this deck. Starting at the top left, 2 Ghastly, 2 Gengar. Of course, we're playing a Ghost Gengar focused deck, 2 Tapu Lele. I love Tapu Lele. Only running 1 of the Oricorio. In the matches that I played, it felt right. 1 Oricorio felt correct to me. You want to lead off with the Tapu Lele. I'm still thinking that the strongest start with the deck is leading with the Tapu Lele, building up the Gengar, having that Oricorio there also just in case. It makes for a very strong opener. In fact, if I was going to go back to the Togekiss deck, which I probably will because I really enjoyed playing it actually, I might try a very similar configuration with 1 Oricorio also. 2 Professor's Research, of course, 2 Pokeball, of course, 1 Iono. I feel like it's probably mandatory, at least something like at least 1 Iono or something to help smooth out the consistency of these rare candy decks. 2 rare candies, of course. Now we've got this random 1 Giovanni, 1 Lily, 1 Cyrus, 1 Guzma, 1 red card, 1 Giant Cape. Is that the perfect tuning for this deck? Are these all correct? I feel like a deck like this, whoever piloted this probably put the work in. You know, us folks on YouTube trying all these different decks, putting this content together out for y'all. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to really confidently say for sure, oh, it should definitely be 0 Giovanni, 2 Lily, 0 Cyrus, 1 Guzma, 1 Sabrina. Those are the exact cards, because, you know, for decks like these, you really have to grind the deck for a while. I would say, given the current meta, to exactly tweak those final 1 of cards. Like that Giovanni, it's kind of a mystery to me. I really don't know. You could make the argument like with a Gengar, 150 is kind of a sweet spot of damage to deal, so you want to deal 70 and you want to be able to deal an 80 attack also. For example, against like a Giratina and various other things, 150 is often feeling like a really good spot, but I don't know. So I'm just going to kind of have to trust. I would say if you want to try this deck out, just trust this list, trust the deck maker who did so well in this tournament, and, you know, maybe make 1 or 2 tweaks of maybe like one of the Giovannis or a Lily, Cyrus, Guzma, something like that, 1 red card, 1 cape, depending on how you're feeling. I do really like the cape in these decks. I already went through that. Red card, always so hard for me to judge. Guzma, similarly, do you play a Guzma or a red? Depends on the meta. Do you even play either? It's going to depend on the meta. Go ahead, everybody, try this deck out. Have fun with it. Give it a try. Let me know what you think of the deck. Let me know what you think of the video format, any improvements I can make, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.